Transmitting to you from Old Heart Radio.
Prepare to have your bones chilled and your hairs raised. It's the WacArnold's Brothers podcast.
Welcome home.
OMG. It's time to start another
Candyman 3.
Candyman 3. Oh my God, you know it. If you hear the sounds of our laughter, and it's a WacArnold's Brothers podcast. All right, number 6. This is number 16, I believe.
16, yeah.
Yeah. And fresh off the back of Mikey and I like that we've had this cool string. We've had Shakma the killer baboon,
Monkey, yeah.
Mikey the sinister fucking child, and then the psycho child, really. And now we find ourselves like sitting on the edge of Candyman 3, which like those two movies were laughable for different reasons. Candyman 3 was laughable for like
awful acting, like
everything was just like off in this movie slightly, you know what I mean?
It's not it's not a good movie.
No, which is why we're talking about it.
Right. Which is also why then I talked about the new Candyman movie, retcons the second and third one, because by this point in the second one is all right, it has some different stuff, but at this point they don't add anything new to this movie. They rehash the same plot points, they tell you the same story for the 50th time. It's just so overdone.
In a way, it felt like there's parts, like you said, that they rehash from the other movies, and it reminded me of how sick I get of seeing Bruce Wayne's Batman origin story in live action. So it's we've seen it, we know it. Just move past that and get us something new.
Yeah, because they the movie opens with another retelling of how this Daniel Robitaille character was an artist, and everyone knows the story.
So I love how it the movie kind of starts off with the main character who I didn't realize this for a while, but apparently was a member of Baywatch.
I didn't know that either. But
that's where that strong acting comes from.
Because she's so bad in this movie. Her facial expressions, so you know how we did one of the Wishmaster movies?
Yeah.
Well, the first one, the lead female character makes me feel the same way, where she has all these facial expressions you just want to reach through the screen and fucking slap the person.
I know, it's just what's
which sounds terrible, but
it's
Baywatch, huh?
Yeah, but I love that it opens with they didn't shy away from any sort of attempt at sexualizing any aspect of this movie. So you open with her just in a tank top and underwear, walking into that bathroom, that all
a dream sequence,
dream sequence. You catch your first glimpse of the Candyman in this whole sequence, and it teases you. It you're gonna get this sweet death right off the bat or something like that, and then it just goes right to the opening credits with this hook slash,
Oh God, yeah. So
but I loved the close up of the hook that it did right before the slash. It was dun dun.
But just such a cliche in horror, that cutaway to the credit, the opening,
Yeah.
You know what might be my favorite part of this movie?
What?
Is that it's set in 2020.
I was wondering about that.
My God. Yeah.
I really couldn't I was surprised that was the
Why did they
case.
go with that? Yeah.
I have no idea.
It's because this was filmed in 99. What are they thinking?
It doesn't, they said it in 2020, but they make no attempt to make it seem in the future at all.
clearly 1990. Yeah, like
Yeah.
they didn't have a budget, I guess. This
they showed
this
shots of
wasn't
like LA. It's just modern day
Yeah.
LA. Like, that's fucking wild though. Like
well, like who?
but
Yeah,
it was they did that because of the canon of the story, if I'm correct, right? Like
Yes.
because the character Caroline or Carol
Mhm.
yeah, Caroline, she is like technically a
And
little girl.
That's why they had to do it, because the second one, there's a character named Annie who they switched the actor in this one, because in the second one, I forget the actress's name, but she was in the OC. That's what I know her from.
Oh yeah.
But
Yeah,
so yeah,
Seth's mom or whatever, right?
yeah, exactly. But you're right. So this one, the character Carolyn is her daughter, and so that's why they had to set it like in 2020, because now she's
Like
it's 25 years after the second film, so she's an adult. So yes, I get what you're saying. That's why they did it. But
well, that's why they did. But I mean, like
it's
I feel like, yeah, it was like I don't know why that had to like hold, because it just doesn't make any sense for the movie.
no.
But
But anyway,
so I mean, like you get that like opening credits or that pre-credit like scene, like I was mentioning, with the classic slash thing opener, and then it goes right from the credits back to like Caroline getting like up or whatever, like in a frantic moment, and like immediately starting to like draw something.
yeah.
I was like, and that's, I think it's kind of interesting how they sort of try to make her, the artistic, like the connection is that she is an artist as well or whatever, but
Yes.
it just,
yes.
it's still just so cheese, like the franticness of like the this figure that she's drawing and like all this stuff. It's like, I don't know. It's just so weird. But I think shortly after that scene, that jumps into like the first scene you meet her friend or whatever.
Miguel.
No, not Miguel.
Oh,
Tamara.
Yeah, her roommate Tamara. Yeah.
And she that's the first time you hear it multiple times in this movie, but that's the
Yeah,
first
I know.
time you
It's
hear
like
the Candyman story, right?
which you've already heard, in the first one and the second one, but yeah, they do retell it like 3 times in this one. It's like beat a dead horse, Jesus.
For real though.
It's like we're not stupid. Like we've, if you,
I've got it by now.
yeah. If you're watching the third one, you've probably seen the fucking first 2. But anyway,
yeah, but it's like, and I mean, like it seems like such a fluff scene, because it's like there to like start telling you that like Caroline doesn't believe
right
in the Candyman.
Mhm.
Or whatever, and that like again gets brought up multiple times, I think, through the movie. But then it does kind of go to like probably one of the only scenes that really gives you context for the title of the movie, The Day of the Dead.
Right.
Where she's like
Well,
walking
there's
around
like
the street, and there's like Dios de la was it Dios? Oh my God, I'm gonna
De La
anyways, the Day of
Mortis,
the
yeah,
Dead.
but
Thank you.
but there's
Thank
like
you for saving me there.
there's other scenes later, but yeah, I get what you're saying, where it seems like they just tacked that on because that was the name of the title,
Yeah, well, it was like they had to like show some. There were like certain scenes, especially later, but yeah, this was like I guess maybe like the first like clear reminder.
And see, this is what I'm saying, where like there's no new original ideas in this movie, because the second one is set in New Orleans during like Mardi Gras. So it's like another thing where it's like going on during this, well-known yearly event,
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting because the Candyman movie, like the original, and I haven't had a chance to see the new one yet, but I've heard that it plays on some of those like sort of like racial themes, as well.
Mhm.
But that's like that's where the like a lot of like the Candyman story starts, as we note later on in this movie as well. But like it's like weird that they try to jam the Candyman into like any cultural event that they can.
And now it's like in California where she. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, we're diverging on the path here.
But yeah, it's like it shows this quick scene where she's walking through like all these groups of people, and it's just like a stupid throwaway scene because she
bumps into like this Tino dude, I think.
Who you meet later. Yeah.
Who you have no, like, there's no reference for it, like in this scene. And so, like, it plays later. But yeah, it was just kind of a cool scene. You see a sugar skull, you know?
Yeah. There's like a little kid selling candy, you know, miss.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is like, I've never been to Mexico, but that's how it is. Like, there's kids running around like, do you want to buy chiclets? You know?
Yeah, dude. I'll buy some fucking street chiclets. But then you find out kind of, a main chunk part of this movie, and that is the art exhibit open.
Yes. She's an artist. Yes, and she has her grandpa's paintings, or her great grandpa, whoever, you know, the Candyman.
I believe it's great grandfather. But she, you know, it's like Day of the Dead. It's that time of year, like, you know, so. I feel like the character Miguel, who you get introduced to here, definitely was kind of right on the money when thinking like we should maybe embrace the Candyman image to like open this art gallery.
And speaking of Miguel, he's the only character in the movie that I liked, because there was just no likable characters in this movie.
The
100% detective is a piece of shit. Like, she's annoying.
Yeah, David, the guy that like the main guy later.
Yeah, he's kind of a douchebag. Like,
yeah. Like, legitimately, I like
Miguel is hilarious. Yeah.
Like how he just keeps like in the scene, he keeps like looking at this like, you know, picture that these two other guys are hanging, and it's like he's like, tilt it left. It's like, he just has to keep reminding him. He's like, pinch it.
He's like meticulous.
Yeah.
He says all these different, you know, like street slang, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, he owns an art exhibit, and they're getting ready to set up like an exhibit for Candyman, you know.
And that becomes like a conflict with Caroline, who wants to like separate. She's the one that owns the paintings, the Daniel Robitaille originals, and Miguel owns the gallery, so he wants to do this Candyman themed exhibit. She wants to just like showcase the paintings and stuff.
Yeah, she just wants to focus on the guy, not like this myth, you know.
Yeah. Which is kind of like, you know, at this point in the series, I think is kind of an interesting element. Like, you know, how can we break away from the myth or something, you know? But,
yeah, it is interesting.
But you know, I will say, the paintings that you see are like, they're all right, but they're just like pretty standard, like
portraits.
Portraits, yeah. So it's like, I really wouldn't, like, without the Candyman theme, I really doubt people would be drawn it.
I wonder who, because the only painting that I really thought was cool was like the gigantic painting of Tony Todd as you know, like someone painted that, like, you know.
That's what I was thinking too. I was like, I wonder if Tony Todd got the original and has it like hanging in his house or something, because I would have wanted my hands on that.
It's just Tony Todd in like old school, you know.
He looks like he's wearing like an old, like, almost like military uniform or something. I don't think that's what it was.
No.
But yeah, so.
But then what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just gonna say, you know, like, so it kind of establishes that conflict, like, really in this scene, which is like the main conflict, I think, in the movie, where it's like, you know, Caroline doesn't want. Basically, she's trying to find a way to like save Daniel Robitaille, like the idea of the man, rather than, like, you know, like I said, the Candyman horror. But
right, she also like doesn't believe, you know, that.
Yeah. And so then it does kind of. Doesn't it just drift into like the actual opening of the gallery, so right after that? This is where like everything, you know, gets kick-started. Yeah. So, you know, and that's kind of interesting because it looks like a pretty good crowd. It looks like a very weird mixed crowd. I think there was like one like large fat white dude smoking a cigar, which was
there's like art critics and like punks and
there's,
you
like,
know, like
really goth, like, you know, heads and stuff like that. Like,
it was really random.
Yeah, it was a weird pull, but you know, I kind of was wondering if something like this was gonna happen, you know, because, you know, it seemed like the perfect opportunity. But you know, they have Caroline kind of introduce Daniel Robota and the artist and whatnot, and then Miguel kind of in front of everybody challenges her to say the Candyman name.
Before then, he also retells the story again. In case
God, yeah, for the second time in the movie.
I like his retelling better though, because he kind of goes like more like what's the word I'm looking for? He has all this like panache when he's doing it. He's like
dude.
Very articulated, and
he's really like
he's into it.
Yeah, he tells the story a lot better.
Which they should have just done there instead of her little thing at the beginning.
Exactly. It was really that's what I mean, especially for having it so close to that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like a really weird like back-to-back thing.
But like you said, he gets her essentially because she doesn't believe in Candyman. He's like, well, then just say his name.
Yeah. Just do it. Like right in front of all these people. Which I thought was kind of a dick move, honestly, but I would have probably wanted to see it happen. But like as soon as she does it, it's this like kind of tense moment. They build up to that number 5.
And it's just, oh man, she's such a, I don't know. They should have. I feel like they could have found such a better actress.
Yeah, she's just like
her. Sorry,
dull. I don't know like how else to like. Candyman.
Yeah.
For real though, for real. It was just like, come on, put like a little something into it. Yeah. But but it doesn't seem like anything happens at first, and then all of a sudden, the mirror cracks, and this guy comes out of nowhere with like a hook in his hand. He's like, I can't even remember what he said. There's something.
He's all really frantic. Strange. He's like, oh, yeah.
Like, don't mess with the. He's like yelling and stuff, and it freaks out, and scares Caroline and everybody.
Yeah, and Miguel's like, get this pinche puto out of here or something. I forget what he says, but
a couple of cops drag the dude out. But we forgot to mention. Oh wait, it kind of happens during this scene. You get introduced to the 2 police officers. Well, you get introduced to 4 detectives overall in this movie, I think, or 3 overall.
Soon. But you get introduced to like this slimy fucking pair of detectives.
Jesus, yeah.
Which we'll talk more about later, but they're clearly racist.
Yeah, like they immediately like, yeah. But I just wanted to point out that the guy that was. The actor or whatever, the guy, or not actor,
David De La Paz.
Yeah, David De La Paz. He was in God, I'm blanking on it. Nightmare on Elm Street.
Which one?
I think the first one. He was like the bad boy in that movie.
Oh my God! Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. He had a leather jacket in that one. I swear. But yeah, it's so a lot of like you get this scene's kind of interesting because you just get you get a couple character introductions and then like you meant said those cops that get introduced, they're like really like overtly racist,
Yes.
and that I think it was part of the play for the movie. It's like overall this movie it has a weird time connecting with like Candyman.
Yeah.
Or it has a hard time furthering the Candyman like mythos or whatever, but it does sort of touch on racial themes, which I think like I was trying to say earlier, like the first Candyman.
It's like a Candyman. Yeah, exactly.
But
we quickly learned though that this maniac that runs into the exhibit was actually like a paid actor by Miguel.
Yeah. He's just like a friend that Miguel knows that like
it would like drum up, interest or whatever. Like hands him a cash, like a fucking fat wad of cash. He's like, here you go.
Yeah, best paid street actor, man. And then that kind of pisses off Caroline. I think she just goes, to go home or whatever, and then Miguel goes home with this like model lady that like you get introduced to, like
Lena. Yeah, I don't even think it shows her name. Like I had to look it up on
I really don't.
IMDb.
I didn't. Yeah, I really didn't catch
But
it.
yeah, she's like
honestly.
this like goth-looking model apparently, and they go, you know, it's implied that they're gonna go have some hanky panky.
Yeah, they're gonna go have a long night. But you know, so then you go and you kind of follow Caroline to like what looks like the seediest subway station in like the fucking world. It's like she almost like there's like some like old like guy who's like walking like past her and like she almost bumps into him. And he goes, "Mah," you know, like, and it's like
that would not be a place you'd want to be alone at night.
no,
Especially being a female, like
no, I would be sketched the hell out. And especially because shortly after that, some bees start
Jesus.
kind of coming into down the subway tracks, and then all of a sudden this cloud of bees comes out of nowhere, and
Dude, the CGI bees in this movie are so shitty looking.
it was like they finally had the ability to do that, and they were just like, let's fucking go all out with the CGI bees.
It did not look good.
Like, and so Tony Todd comes floating down the train tracks,
Which also looked terrible. Like
on this cloud of bees, and just lands on the platform. It was so unmenacing.
if it, I will say this: if it wasn't for like, because regardless of how bad this movie is, like he's great with that character, and Tony Todd is just a great character actor and a great actor.
Oh, absolutely.
He saves the movie, but
I was just gonna say that. Like the savior of the movie by far was Tony Todd. And I mean, honestly, to me, like that dude is like, I would classify him as like one of those like living legend kind of actors where it's like he has been a part of, you know, deep horror, and he has been, you know, a staple in the horror movie scene, you know, for so long. And you know, it just wouldn't be the same without his contribution.
Yeah,
I think.
exactly.
And so, you know, it's super cool to see him like, you know, in this role.
regardless. But like you said, he floats in and he delivers one of his like Candyman-ish like monologues, and then Carolyn ends up fainting, which she does a lot in this movie.
She faints.
It's such a shitty looking faint. She's like, like falls. It's so bad,
dude. It's I just and that's what I mean. It's like clearly when they like cast her, I really don't think they were looking for the acting skills. We'll say
no,
they were looking for other
like
things.
Yes,
right. But yeah, so she faints and then wakes up on a park bench outside of Miguel's apartment building.
Yeah.
With a bee on her face.
No, that's right.
And, you know, which is weird enough because it's like, how the fuck did I get here? But then she immediately tries to just go. Obviously, she's like, oh, I'm at Miguel's, so I'm gonna just go
inside.
And so she just lets herself in, you know, and starts like walking around like Miguel, you know, trying to like
starts
see
like
if she's there.
Going through the house. Yeah.
And you know, while this is happening, you kind of simultaneously see hello. Oh no. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. You there? All right. I'll just have to.
Sorry. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, she.
But so she goes. Like it's kind of happening during her like walkthrough of the house, where like you see how how Miguel and Lena's night played out.
It's like interspersed between her, you know, eventually going upstairs and finding their bodies. But yeah,
and it's just so like I like don't know where half of like the things that Miguel and Lena were doing came from, because like they're like all having a good time, getting all loosey goosey, and then next she
gets naked, she
gets naked and she's like eating honeycombs and like she's got like honey on her body and stuff, and you're just like where are they, like what is this?
I forget what he says, but he has a funny thing where she's doing that where he like puts his hands to his face like he's praying, and he's like, "Oh, Dios mío," or says something like that. It's so hilarious. Like, essentially, like admitting in the moment that he's a lucky bastard, because whoever this woman was beautiful, and she was sitting there essentially naked, dripping honey on her body.
Dripping honey on her body. It was just like the funniest shot. I was like, how I have never thought that I still don't think after watching that sequence that it's sexy. Like of like, you know, somebody just like eating a honeycomb naked in front of you. Like, oh,
it's a little weird.
It's a little strange. There are sexier foods, but
yes.
you know, it was purely because of the Candyman.
Yeah, of course. So they run upstairs and she hops on the bed and she's like, "Come and get me, B-boy," or something like that. But before he can, you know, consummate this relationship,
that's when you start seeing, you know, some bees appear. It's always
you hear them, yeah, it's like,
and the next thing you know, like she's starting to get like covered in bees. Like,
yeah,
you know,
which
and
would fucking suck.
It would 100%. Like what I thought was really funny was like it didn't. I mean, maybe it was supposed to be like a really quick moment or something, but it didn't seem like a super quick moment. And so while she's getting covered in bees and like, you know, screaming and whatnot, Miguel's just over there like just like watching this, going like, "What's going on? You know, like what's happening?" And it's like, I don't know, dude. Like, what do you think's happening? She's getting covered in bees. There's not. You know, whatever. Right, but anyway, so very quickly after that, though, then the Candyman like appears behind Miguel, and I've always wondered this about some of his like kills, and you know, he basically like plunges his hook straight through Miguel, and I was like, that's gotta like, I mean, because you know, it's a hook, right?
How do you? Yeah, because it's not. The sharp ends.
Yeah,
I know what you're saying.
He like must have like blunt force just pushed it through Miguel and then rips it right out afterwards. But I was like, that's fucked. But yeah, so Miguel is kind of the Candyman's first like actual like slash kill victim. I think in this movie.
Yes.
But you know, this all like we were saying, this is all kind of you're seeing all this for the first time while Caroline's walking through their house, and then she walks upstairs and discovers their bodies in the room.
Yes,
and that's when the cops get involved again.
You first meet a pair of detectives, which like a black gentleman named Jamal and his partner Jamie.
Yeah,
and that Carolyn really doesn't want to talk to them, but then in walks. So their names are it says the one guy's name a bunch because he's like the main like bad guy that's not Candyman, Samuel Kraft. I don't even think it says his partner's name. That's another character where I had to look it up on IMDb. I have it written down because but either way,
it up too. I honestly think it was mentioned like once, and it was like right before his death. And I'm just not pulling it off the top of my head. But the racist. So you meet. It's kind of important that you meet the Jamal and his partner because they come into play later on. And also, side note, apparently that actor who plays Jamal is Ernie Hudson Jr.
Okay.
So from like Ghostbusters.
Oh, that's right.
Ernie Hudson. I was like, that's kind of cool. But.
Okay, so the other detective's name is Sacco.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So Sacco and Kraft are these like sexist, racist, like piece of fucking shit detectives, and they question her, and you know they also you learn here because they question her about David, and she's like, oh, he's just an actor, and then they tell her that somebody came in and stole all of the paintings from the exhibit. Yeah,
and that's like you know the other big kind of mystery thing that like kind of you have to unfold in this movie, and there is also like it's like interesting because you know you kind of the racist detectives are also you find out are also racist against other detectives. It's not just poor Latinos.
Right.
So you know you kind of get this play of like they're really building these characters up to be unlikable from all angles.
Mm-hmm.
Which you mentioned is kind of like him as kind of like the other villain of this movie. I would almost hesitate to say that Candyman, he does kill people, but he is not like painted as necessarily as like a vibe villain, you know.
Right.
So that's kind of a good call. He is kind of like a secondary villain.
Definitely.
But yeah, and then I believe this scene kind of leads into like an David and Caroline interaction. Is that right, or am I jumping something?
Not quite yet, because the detectives give Carolyn a ride home.
That's right.
She goes up into her apartment complex, and as she's like walking through the halls, she hears her roommate screaming.
Oh yeah.
But she like drops her keys in a vent, and there's this whole scene where she's trying to like fish her keys out from the vent, and her roommate's screaming. But turns out that her roommate was just she just landed this part, and she was going through the script or something like that.
Yeah. It was all for
and the screams were so bad. It was like, oh God. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tamara was just auditioning for a part. So.
Yeah.
And then we also get like, and then after this, it shows Carolyn crying in the shower, and we get the first of many flashbacks, which it explains more later about her mom, who was the character in the second one. She's like dead in a bathtub, and covered in blood.
That's right. It's like another sequence where she's like wearing a t-shirt and underwear, and she wanders into like this bathroom and discovers her mother's body.
Slit throat,
which is like, it's something that you find out was ruled like a suicide.
Yeah.
But you like the scene that you walk up on in that, you're just like, that doesn't look like a suicide to me.
No.
But yeah, it's like, it's interesting that like the flashbacks, I don't necessarily think that they're necessary, especially because it's not the same actress, and like you were saying earlier,
it's not.
and
so it's jarring.
So it's sort of just like I don't know, it kind of shook the movie a little bit, though. But yeah, she tells Tamara that the night her mom died, that her mom had called his name. Yeah.
And she told Carolyn to destroy the myth.
Yeah. Which again comes into play later, but yeah, that's sort of like, I remember like, you know, when watching it, I was like, destroy the myth. I was like, that, I mean, it's like out there, right? Like it doesn't seem like a feasible thing. But
and then we get like the first like next scene with David, because he shows up at her house, and he explains that like he was grilled by the police all day, and then he also tells her that word on the street is that a gang stole her paintings.
Yeah, and so that's when they kind of concoct the plan to maybe like try to find the paintings themselves and clear David's name.
Let's go investigate. Yeah.
Also, they do like during this whole sequence, there is like a little bit of, again, some of those some of like the racial issue that gets brought up. He kind of like makes a mention of how, like, you know, the police just look at you know, him and other Latinos as wetbacks, and, you know, not for anything and stuff like that. And so again, it was kind of still like,
which were his words, not yours.
yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. That was in the movie.
That's a line in the movie. Yeah.
Thanks. Good call. But you know, so it's like, again, I like they do a little bit of good job of like keeping a Candyman, like the Candyman theme with this whole movie, but it feels so far at this point in the movie, it feels like a bad 90s like teen slasher, not a full Candyman movie, you know what I mean?
Yes. No.
But anyway,
no,
so they go.
I agree.
So they go on. David and Caroline go to investigate the stolen paintings, and because they have like a potential. Or wait, no. Did they go to the bar next, or did they go to visit his abuelo next? No, they go to the bar.
They first go to the bar,
and that's when they meet Tino again.
Yes, and David's talking with Tino, and Carolyn goes into the bathroom, and long story short, she has another like vision of Candyman, and like
not
it's
flashback,
like
I don't know why I said flashback.
It's him standing there, and then her mom's dead body like walking towards her, and she screams, you know.
Yeah, and
passes out again.
Yeah, dude, exactly. And like right as David, like, David finally busts in the door, and like, like right as he's running to her, she's like down for the count again. I know, it's like,
and then
it's so ridiculous.
And then we meet his, as you put it, abuela for the first time.
Well, so there's not a character name for that character. It's just abuela.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, so I guess grandma is. But anyway, so he brings her back to his apartment, and you meet what's his daughter's name? It's Christina, his daughter, and his abuela, who apparently can heal people's spirits.
Yes, she's a spiritual healer.
Yeah,
she's a psychic healer. Sorry, that's the term.
Fair enough.
And this first scene with the grandma is so like unnecessarily long.
Oh yeah, that's kind of what I thought too. I was like, why is this dragging on? But there were like a little bit of cool things, like so, she starts her process of trying to figure out what's going on with Carolyn, and there's like the whole egg thing.
Yeah,
she does, which was like that was probably like kind of grossed me out. But she has like Carolyn like below on this egg or whatever, or no, she says Candyman into the egg, I think, and then like the abuela goes and like cracks the egg, and the just the yolk's in a bowl, and then all of a sudden like a hole kind of, like forms in the yolk, and then like blood starts coming out of it, and then a bee crawls out of the middle of the yolk.
Of course it does.
Yeah, of course it does. It's like, I mean, it kind of looked cool, and it kind of grossed me out, but it was also like like you just expressed, it was sort of like, of course there's a bee.
But I just feel like there's a scene later with the grandma that's more important to the context of what's going on in this movie. And I felt like this kind of scene we could have done without.
Yeah, it seemed like frivolous filler almost, where it's just sort of like, okay, we needed like some extra minutes. We'll just do a quick little, I don't know, weird scene here. But
right, because then they leave, and Samuel comes and threatens David again.
Yeah. Well,
so long story short.
Well, because doesn't he have like a small crush on Carolyn at this point?
Well, yeah, he has this like weird, creepy like
not crush. Yeah, it's like almost like an obsession. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like because when they drop her off earlier, he like gives her a card and has this like disgusting piggish comment to his partner about her, I forget what it was, but yeah, essentially he's gonna try to get in her pants.
Yeah.
But so what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, so that that happens, and then there's like the whole sequence where it's just like David and Carolyn
at her apartment.
Yeah. And like,
because she doesn't want to be alone.
Yeah, she doesn't want to be alone, so they're doing tequila shots on the couch.
Yeah.
I was like, whose idea was it? Was it Carolyn's or David's to drink tequila? I don't know. But they were doing tequila shots, and
man, that was my least favorite when I was drinking. Ugh.
Yeah, dude, same. I don't drink anymore, but what I did drink, that was always the one that made me sick. It was always the one that left like a bad taste in my mouth. Like I just never got into it.
Yeah.
But so you have this sequence, they get all loosey-goosey, lovey-dovey. And then like in this, in the midst of this like, sex sequence, Carolyn starts envisioning Tony Todd, Candyman on top of her, and like it's super creepy because you're just like this anytime there's like a sexual moment with her or Candyman or any iteration, you're just like they're technically blood related.
Yeah.
And so I was always like, why does he want to fucking bang his great granddaughter? I don't get that. But anyway,
right.
Moving past it. Yeah. It was really odd. Is like a kind of meant to be like another.
It's like a dream.
Scene,
because she wakes up and it was like a nightmare. So then it was like, did she really have sex with him or with David or not? You know what I mean? It doesn't explain that, which I guess isn't important. But.
Yeah, but it is. It's like, yeah, it's like, what was, like, did she just pass out on him and that was all a drink?
Right.
The tequila got her. Again, but then you kind of go to, I believe, another scene with her roommate.
Yeah, the last scene with her roommate.
Yeah, fair enough. And, this is where, they're kind of arguing back and forth about the Candyman again, because, earlier in the movie, Tamara was, like, egging her on to just, like, get past it, say the name, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And then, in this sequence, Tamara finds out that the Candyman is very real.
Well, at first, because she's like, it's like one of those typical scenes in a movie where the one character is distraught over this situation and the other one's like, well, you need help. Like, this isn't real,
Yeah. Yeah. Just dismissive and like.
Yeah. And then, well, I guess you shouldn't have done that.
Dude, Tony Todd guts her, man. Like,
yeah.
like it was another, like, I love the Candyman's like scare tactic where he just like appears behind you.
Yeah, out of nowhere, just like.
And because Tony Todd's so big,
he is.
Like, in this scene, you see him like his whole arm just swoops up, and he's
got a big fucking long arm.
Dude, he does, and he just goes all the way around her and like hooks her in the front of her chest and like then like picks her up. And I thought he was gonna give her like a backbreaker or something like that.
That would have been great.
That would have been ultimate, but like it just like holds her dead body in his hands and like. It's a pretty cool like death scene for in the context.
It's probably the best. It's probably the best death scene.
Yeah, and then
because
and so this kind of leads into another interaction with the police because Carolyn must have called the police or something like that.
Yeah, but and obviously like. There's no Candyman there, obviously, and she's there covered in blood holding her dead roommate. Like, what are they going to think? So, at this point, she's the prime suspect,
Yeah. And so Kraft and, what was it, Cisco or something?
Sacco.
Kraft and Sacco kind of take Carolyn with them, and they are... presumably taking her down to the precinct or something like that.
Yes.
But they take her to like, I don't know, some fucking railroad tracks or something. And
I think that's where they just were parked behind her place.
Oh, okay. She lives in a weird part of town.
Yes.
But so they take her outside, and Kraft, being the ultimate douchebag that he is, smacks her across the face.
Backhands her. Yeah.
Fucking like. God, dude, I was like, you think this guy's like low enough, and then he like on top of being like the ultimate racist in the movie, he like backhands the main female character. You're just like, fucking God, dude.
Because she's like trying to say that it was the Candyman, and he like slaps her, and he's like, there's no Candyman or whatever.
No Candyman.
And then what were you gonna say?
Oh, but this leads like he goes off, like he just like Kraft goes off.
Well, because Sacco like. Actually, for once, is kind of shows some like human, where he's like, you need to leave. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like,
yeah. And so Sacco, presumably, is then gonna like take her.
But then he immediately becomes a douche again because he's like mocking her about the Candyman thing.
That's what I thought. I was like, you just stood up for her, you get her in the car, and then you're like, yeah, you fucking idiot.
And then this is another part where I'm talking about how unoriginal this movie is, because in both the first two Candyman movies and about to happen in this one, there's a scene where the character witnesses Candyman kill a fucking police officer. Like, it's like, did they really need to do that a third time?
They're like, it worked the first two times. It'll work a third.
Like, come on.
I mean, I will admit, like, this is probably one of the bloodiest kills in the movie.
It is.
But you're right, dude. I didn't even think about that. Like, it is yet again another thing that they just took out of the other movie.
My God, like there's no originality.
But so the death though is kind of cool. It's another all of a sudden, Sacco gets a hook through the chest, and it comes out the back seat of the car, and there's blood just spewing everywhere in the front seat, and Carolyn's screaming in the back, and then obviously the Candyman's made the kill. There's this great moment though where Carolyn's trying to get out of the vehicle.
Yeah.
And she the only way, because all the doors are basically closed off, she has to climb over the Sacco's body.
Yeah.
So she's kind of climbing over it, and then while she's almost straddling his body, the Sacco comes back to life for a second.
Pops alive for another jump scare.
Yeah, for another jump scare. And then that's when Carolyn finally gets out of the vehicle. And also I thought, she takes this moment to try to she's covered in blood, from her roommate, from Sacco now, and to be incognito, she steals a police jacket that says police in big bold letters on the back, and runs off.
Right, how inconspicuous is that?
Yeah, it's somebody's gonna say something, right?
So yeah, she ends up going to what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I thought this sequence, though it was, God, yet again a Candyman police kill, it still had this was probably my favorite kill in the movie. I think.
I agree. So she ends up going to Miguel's house again, but before she does that, it has this and this is the second or third time it's happened in this movie where Candyman has a monologue where it shows the backdrop is this painting of Candyman on a shed, which they did multiple times. That's what I'm just saying. This is another one where they, how many times do you have to have that scene where all it shows is the backdrop, and then it's Candyman saying something like, "I'm gonna make her surrender to me," or whatever.
Yeah, we haven't. Yeah, exactly. We haven't even touched on how many times we've heard at this point the word victim.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because that's
which was cool
line, right?
in the first one when it's the first time you hear it.
But it's not a great catchphrase over when it's hammered in as much as it is in this movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where and. Yeah, I don't know. It's I just don't understand what they were trying to accomplish with the Candyman image in this movie. You know what I mean? And also a side note, we haven't even necessarily talked about. I think we kind of glossed over the. Oh no, it's actually coming up. Never mind. I think the so you mentioned that she goes back to David's apartment with.
Or sorry, not Miguel's, David's.
Her abuela.
But David's not there. Yeah.
Yeah, and so she, Carolyn decides to I think kind of take up, Bowie, my dog, kind of take up.
Yeah, he's adorable.
He's adorable. He's also trying to make it. He's trying to be on the podcast.
Yeah.
But Carolyn goes back and she's kind of interacting with David's abuela, and that's when they sort of discover, or they sort of talk about the history, I think, of Robitaille a bit. You see, again, you kind of rehash that he was a former slave who got, hired on to do these paintings because his master discovered that he was really prolific. And but I think that the thing that I was going to mention though is that earlier in the movie, I believe, you actually see a sex scene involving Candyman.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Which was the most random thing to me. Was one of the most random things about this movie. I was nobody. I wonder if Tony Todd was pushing for that, where he was listen, everybody wants it. Everybody wants to see what the Candyman gets down like. Okay.
Because I understand fleshing out this backstory where he fell in love with the daughter of this guy. He's painting his daughter or whatever. But yeah, it does show this weird romantic scene that's supposed to be set in the the 30s or 40s or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just such a
Or whenever it was. Yeah.
It was just such a random like unnecessary bit. You know what I mean? But you kind of anyway in this sequence when talking to Abuela, she kind of like they kind of rehash a brief again history of what the Candyman went through.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that's right.
And
this part's cool though, because continue what you were gonna say. Sorry.
Well, like so, there's like all the like the. So it's like she's interacting with the Abuela. She also simultaneously in this scene you also get a call from Tino, who discovers the whereabouts of the paintings, basically.
Yes, where he basically tells her that he knows one of the gang members is there, and he wants to talk to her about the paintings. Yeah. But real quick, there is a cool thing here with the Abuela where she essentially tells Carolyn that she needs to get rid of the evil part of Candyman. She needs to destroy the good part.
Yeah.
And the good part of him lies in his paintings, and so that's why that whole back flash scene happened.
That makes sense. But yeah, and that kind of sets you up for like the big conflict of what Carolyn needs to figure out. Towards the end of this movie, which is just that. It's like, okay, if I'm going to destroy the Candyman, how do I destroy the evil as well as the good? You know? And so then I think that's when she gets like the phone call.
Yes.
And then agrees to go meet Tino, who has like one of the gang members
right
waiting for her or whatever. But in the meantime, by the way, she's changed into Caroline, the main character, changed out of her bloody tank top and clothes into just like a regular white tank top with like it's like the focus of this movie for her character were her titties because
I know.
Because like in this entire end of the movie, she's like wearing just like a white tank top with no bra on, like she's wandering around. It's just like it was so strange that they picked a really unsexual movie to try to like have us a really hypersexualized main character.
I know what you're saying.
But so anyway, so she goes to the bar to meet with Tino, and the guy that Tino has like waiting for her is this like goth looking dude who's like chain smoking cigarettes at the bar. You're like all nervous looking. I think he has an eyebrow piercing,
Mm-hmm. But so before this all happens, though, there's like it's not really important, but she gets out of the Abuela's house because the detectives are there.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Anyway, it's not really important, but yeah, they go to try to find David. But Carolyn sneaks out a back entrance, and she like makes her way through the Day of the Dead again. Yeah. And there's also like a really quick part where Jamal gets in a fist fight with Samuel Kraft and knocks him out. Like none of this is really important, and none of it needed to happen.
But you're right. Like I completely glossed over that. Like it's like this. It's one of the only other times in this movie that you really see like the festivities of Day of the Dead happening.
Yes.
And yeah, she's kind of like working her way through the crowd, trying to be incognito. Kraft.
Oh,
what?
There is one ridiculous line during this scene where she's sneaking through, and it's showing like the female detective from earlier talking with Jamal about Sacco being dead. Oh, and yeah. she says, because obviously they assume that Carolyn killed her, and she goes, "Yeah, it gives PMS a whole new meaning."
Oh my god, dude! Yeah, that's right. When I was watching this movie, I turned to Nadine and I was like, "And 1999 showed up."
Like that was such an unnecessary. Just
why? You're right. That's so fucking bad. And I love that the interaction that you were talking about between Jamal and Kraft. It was just like it was such a satisfying moment because it was like it was like all the culmination. Then he just says, I don't even remember what he says to Jamal that like sets him off in this sequence. But then he's just like, like basically just like, fuck it. And just walks up to Kraft and just socks him. Like,
yeah.
It was so
one punch knockout. Yeah.
It was like One Punch Man over here. But yeah, then they kind of, she kind of escapes, evades the police, we'll say.
Yes.
And meets up with the gang member. That's right.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And and this whole, so he like, this part's funny because she goes and meets with the gang member, and it's this dilapidated, like dungy, condemned building. And you see, like, as she's walking through it, you can see people running in through the background. And then out of nowhere, this random punk-looking guy knocks her out. Yeah. And he hits her in the head with the hook. And when she comes to, she's tied to a chair and has a gag in her mouth. And so this next scene with all these gang members is some of the worst acting in the whole entire film.
Yeah.
Like the main,
that's saying something.
Yeah. It's the main gang member guy, and it's like this. It's not even a gang. It's like a cult. It's this weird.
Yeah, they're just. It's like a bunch of fucking like. They're not even. I guarantee you, none of these kids even listen to like good metal music. They probably listen to new metal, and they're like want to be his new congregation.
And this is another thing where it's like. It's supposed to be set in 2020, but this straight up is like a 1990s thing. Like,
yeah, they're like the leader of the gang's wearing like black mesh, and like, and he has like a chain that's going from his nose, like hook to like his ear. And, like,
he's such a like the main like the leader of the cults or whatever. He has some really shitty acting and dialogue, and it's all bad because he's the one that explains like. We're the faithful, members, and we're gonna resurrect him, and all that, yada yada yada.
Yeah, like that, and that's what I mean. It's like it's like, and it feels kind of out of nowhere because you have the mention earlier of like, oh, I don't want people to, get the wrong idea about him and try and continue on this legacy or whatever. But then like at the end of the movie to have this drop where it's like there's this whole like subgroup of people who are like his congregation of loyal followers and stuff. It's just like, where the fuck did these people come from, man? Like,
for real.
And so yeah, there's a handful of them, and the you're right, like the leader that kind of walks around and walks around Carolyn and like kind of is giving this like spiel about wanting to bring back the Candyman or like his being faithful and all this shit, and then he turns and like to one of the followers and says like it's like, who's gonna say his name, and some one of the ladies in the group jumps up and like runs over to Amir and is like, Candyman, starts saying it. And like,
and then this is one of the cooler scenes of the movie though, is when
for sure
she summons him, and they're probably thinking that they're gonna summon Candyman and he's gonna come and be my loyal followers and all this and that, but no, they get fucking sliced and diced.
Dude, sliced and diced is a
or
good
hooked, I should say,
because they do. He just, you don't see. I thought this was kind of cool. You don't see him like slashing them up and stuff. You just see it all off camera. But like you see the
she's like in the chair,
yeah. You see him appear, and then you kind of just like see him just go, and you're hearing the noises of things and whatnot. And then after everything's said and done, everybody's all nice and sliced. They start kind of showing the room.
And this is probably some of the gorier parts of the movie is like their dispatched bodies.
Oh, and side note, David is somewhere in this warehouse dangling around on some meat
right because there's like that's right, there's like a quick scene where it shows him like on a hook, and then there's another time because when the Candyman was there, he tells Carolyn again like, David's life for yours, be my victim, which is something he utters multiple times. But yeah, you're right. David's hanging from a hook somewhere.
Be my victim is such a weak. I feel like it's such a weak fucking line, and he says it so much in this sequence. Baby.
I forgot to mention that before she so Carolyn, while she's in the chair and he's killing all the people, she passes out again for like the third time, and then she wakes up, and this is when she finds everybody dead in gruesome.
Yeah, because she wakes up. That's right. She passes the fuck out, and then she wakes up like untied, ungagged, or whatever.
Yeah, and and she picks up the hook on the ground and leaves from that area.
Yeah.
And as that is happening, this is when we see Samuel for the next time, and he is very clearly drunk. He's at the station talking about how they took his shield. So apparently something happened where he was taken off the force. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I love that. I mean, like you don't get the context of exactly why or anything like that. You just get this like brief moment where, yeah, you're right. He's like at his locker. He's kind of drunk and he's angry, and he reveals that he's no longer a policeman, basically.
Yeah.
And you know, it's kind of good because you don't really need more filler, I think, but at the same time, they've done a good job throughout this movie of painting all these reasons why he shouldn't be a police officer.
Yes,
yes. Yeah. So that plays
because now we're kind of reaching like
we're reaching the climax.
Now we're reaching, yes, for 100%. Because
but you know, like when watching this movie, I would say like that threw me off for a second though in terms of like where they placed it, that scene with Kraft, because it was sort of like, you know, there's all this shit happening at the warehouse, and then like you just get this like really quick brief scene, and you're like, okay, why do I care about him?
Yeah.
But then you find out why later, of course, but yeah,
right.
That's like, you know, this is when Tony Todd and Carolyn kind of really come to like a confrontation of their own, right? Where it's like,
right,
she
goes to the.
What?
Sorry.
Oh, you're good. She goes to kind of, I imagine, try and find David.
Yes.
At this point, and discovers, you know, like
it's this elaborate room.
Yeah,
you know,
it's this huge space that they're in.
Yeah.
And you know, this is when she's going through and like you're discovering what fucking happened to all those goths, and that was like, you know, she's finding all the bodies. There's like that one jump scare where like the body swings down from the top, and then she comes upon this like fucking altar of like candles and skulls and shit.
Because she goes to this is a different building that she goes to though, because after the goths are all dead, she picks up a hook and leaves. But then she goes to like this other building, and like you said, it's just it's this. How did you just put it?
Oh, it's like an altar. It's like
because it's all these paintings and candles and
the big main, you know, what you were talking about earlier, the Tony Todd, Daniel Robichaud, like portrait is it's on top. It's of
weird
this hill almost.
Yeah, it was, and there's all these different like human fucking there's skeletons and skulls and bones and shit. Yeah, and then and then she also sees David hanging from the hook now.
Yeah.
And she lowers him down, and he's somehow still alive because it doesn't explain how long he's been there, but it's probably been a day or two.
Yeah, and that's why I kept thinking too. I was like, that motherfucker would be dead.
Dead.
like there's no way.
You would have been dead from blood loss, no question about it.
And then, this is again kind of like, I think this is where the Candyman sort of enters into play again.
Yes.
Where he's like, you know, your life for David's.
Yep.
Be my victim, like, and he almost gets it in this moment, I think, because like, you know, there's this like moment where Carolyn is kind of like held by his gaze and held by his, you know, his words, and sort of like almost starts drifting towards him a little bit. She's like in a trance like state, and exactly. And this is like, you know, the classics, the classic like moment where it's like, it's creepy, it's weird.
Yeah.
She gets like really close, and like they start kissing. And,
like you said, like it's just like it's incest, you know.
It's incest at that point. You're just like, it's just like, what the fuck is going on here? And then, you know, that's when I think she breaks. Like, you know, she has that moment, and she's like, I don't know, maybe, you know.
Well, because there's like bees coming out of his mouth, and then he reveals his like disgusting rib exposed chest with the bees everywhere. She has another flashback of her dead mother. Like, fucking Christ, how many times do they got to do that? But then she snaps out of the trance. Yeah.
Yeah, she snaps out of the trance after all of that.
Like the millionth time showing her mother's dead. Like, God damn.
And that's when she I believe starts trying to like scramble up that hill
Yeah.
towards the painting, and it doesn't really work out at first. You know, she kind of like tumbles down. Although the hill doesn't look like it's that difficult. She eventually makes it up. And is this was like the weird moment in the for me in this like sequence. You know, she starts, and I understand they probably had to figure out some way of like getting rid of the Candyman,
right?
But like her just starting to slash. She has that hook. She finds that the hook or whatever. She starts slashing the picture of Daniel Robitaille, and as she slashes him, the Candyman's like,
he's like, oh,
like he's getting cut up too. And of course, in classic fashion, Caroline accidentally knocks a candle over.
Yeah, of course.
All of this, and then the oil painting bursts into flames. And I don't know if you know. I mean, like it was hard not to notice, but the way that the Candyman fucking dies,
dude, it's so bad.
It's like there's like a note. It's like this like weird electrical explosion underneath him, and then all of a sudden, he just engulfs into flame.
It just disappears. It was the effects were so bad.
It was so cheesy.
So bad.
So cheesy.
Yeah.
And,
so
yeah. You think that's it? You think it's going to simmer down from there? And this movie's not done with you yet, though.
No, which I didn't. Which I thought that obviously like that was going to be the end too. She would go over to David's body and they would reconcile, and that would be the end. But no. Yeah, and that's they throw us a curve, which is the only saving grace I would say is like that. This movie's bad, but this little like ending part kind of gives it a little juice, you know what I mean? Definitely. And that's when, like, so this is when you find, enter the Kraft man. So the Detective Kraft, or former Detective Kraft, comes in, he's like, he's obviously angry, probably still drunk. You hear like something scraping on the wall, he has a hook in his hand, and he's intent on killing these two, it seems like. He's disheveled and drunk, and he looks like he's got some blood on him. Like, he's not in a good way here. And so he's like going at him, and then boom, you hear a gunshot, and it's Detective Jamal. Right, but before Jamal shows up and shoots Kraft, he has this really great. Well, I think they meant for it to be more serious, but I ended up laughing where he looks at Carolyn and he's like, I'm going to split you open from groin to... I'm going to split you from groin to gullet or something like that. I thought that was so funny. It was so cheesy. And the way he delivered it, I'm going to split you from groin to gullet. Like unintentionally funny. But then, like you said, as he like goes to swing... Pop! Yeah. He gets fucking Jamal comes in and saves the day. And I will say this: it's meant to be like a mystery at first. Like who did that? Who shot? But there's no feasible way that Jamal could have made that shot, because right after he shoots and Kraft goes down, then he jumps from around this corner. It's like, haha, Detective Jamal's to the rescue. Yeah, I know. But anyway, so that was. And then the movie kind of ends on a cop out, because like one of the things was destroy the myth, and she has a flashback, and so their way of destroying the myth is that she pins all the murders on Kraft. Yeah. It was so strange to me. I was like, it was just not. They didn't put any thought. Like that was just And then like it cuts to like, these like this part's funny conclusion scenes, and it's like one of them is Jamal in front of a podium and a bunch of news people going like, after months
months-long investigation, we discovered that Detective Kraft is basically responsible for all these murders. I was like, what the fuck were they investigating?
He's like after an exhaustive year-long internal investigation.
We can all admit the dude's a piece of shit, but like, what evidence was there that he was the Candyman?
Yeah, it was just like I said, it was kind of this cop-out way of like they could have come up with a more creative way to destroy the myth, but that's what they came with, to just pin it on someone else so no one thinks that it was the Candyman. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then it ends with the ultimate cheese, where it's just like,
oh yeah,
Caroline and her newfound love of her life, David, and like his kid having a picnic at the cemetery by, I believe, her mom's grave.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
Yeah.
This movie.
It was a bad movie.
It was bad. Like you mentioned, I think earlier, Tony Todd definitely like if anything could hold this movie up, he was holding it up. You know what I mean? Like his performance, because like at this point he really like just embodies that character. You know, so there's no one else that that was probably it. Although I did hear that like, coming off of this movie, they had supposedly had a fourth Candyman plan. And I was like, after watching this, I was like, I'm glad.
What'd you say?
I heard that they had a fourth Candyman movie actually planned post Day of the Dead. And I was like, I'm really glad they didn't move forward with that, because
same.
Like this movie really like beat the Candyman myth to death.
Yeah, there's just nothing else. Like, I don't see anywhere they could have went with it, because they could have either went like madcap zany with it and done some ridiculous shit like Leprechaun did. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. That would have been the only course if you ask me, because it's like, but then it also discredits, I think, some of the intent behind the original story. I just wish that they would have kept it at the very first one, because the first Candyman is such a fantastic, still to this day, iconic and long-standing horror movie. I wish they would have just left it at that, instead of kind of, tarring the legacy a little bit with the second and third one. Yeah. Well, because like, and you see here, like, it just, I think like properties like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like those characters like Leatherface and the family in general are like, kind of bombastic horror characters anyway, right? Yeah. So you could extend those, and do weird, wild things with them, like they did with the second one. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But Candyman it's meant, like, it was meant to be kind of like a serious horror movie. You know? And so it wasn't. I don't think it's good to like try and like, as we saw with this, sort of stretch that out, because it just doesn't do service to like the creepy aspect and the whole, like the actual like cool things about the Candyman like movie and story. So I don't know. This definitely earned us place on this podcast, though. I will say that. Man. Fucking Christ. But, completely. Like even so, like it's just like this just made me even more hyped to like get my ass in the theater to go see Candyman. You need to see it. Yeah, I do. I know that's out. I got to see that obviously before Halloween Kills, and I got to see Malignant, which just dropped. Dude. Okay, so I want to say something really quick. So when we filmed the Mikey episode and we talked about how I saw Candyman, that was the weekend it came out. So we're filming this episode, which is going to come out this next weekend, but I saw Malignant on Saturday. Yeah. Dude, go fucking see it. It is, oh my God. I loved it. I think it's one of those movies where people are either going to love it or kind of, walk away a little bit on the fence. I thought it was amazing. I don't want to give anything away. It was fucking bonkers. There was, oh man, I want to go see it again. I thought it was exceptional. Hell yeah. It's different. It's got some creativity. It's got some things you won't see coming. It has it has some action aspects to it. Some parts of it remind me of like a
Italian Giallo, where like the character has a specific weapon, and there's the like you just have to see it, man. It is exceptional.
Oh my god, I'm excited now. That just hyped me even more, man.
I loved
can't
it.
Fucking wait.
I thoroughly loved it.
And is this I mean, I don't know if you know this off the top of your head. Is this like? It's been a little while since James Wan made a horror movie, hasn't it?
Yeah, because he did like Fast and Furious 9 and Aquaman. Yeah. It has been a while since he's done horror.
Yeah, and I mean, because like he like if I'm remembering correctly, he gave us Saw, right?
Yeah, and he also directed the first Conjuring and the first Insidious.
Yep. So
he's given us some horror franchises.
Yeah, and so that's what's cool. It's like when you have like it's like a I don't know, like a modern like a trusted modern horror director.
Yes.
Anytime they drop something, it's like
yeah,
it's just exciting. You're just like, oh my god, what could it be?
Especially when he's doing more, like the next movie he's going to do is the second Aquaman, and who knows from there, because he's not just making horror movies. So that's why it's even more exciting when he comes back to doing a horror movie after doing these like big budget blockbusters for a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And honestly, just not to dwell on it too much, but I've heard that his take on this next Aquaman movie is actually influenced by a classic horror movie.
Yeah,
like I think it's called Planet of the Vampires or something like that.
Yeah, and I've read that too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, that'd be kind of cool if it's not going to be a dark, scary movie, but that'd be cool if they give him a little leeway to do like maybe some scares,
Yeah,
like so.
Because like those monsters from the trench were pretty fucking cool in the first one. Yeah,
exactly. I was like, do some play with that shit, man. Like it'll do that franchise some good.
Yeah,
but that's sick, man. Okay, well we've got to figure out next week's
we'll figure
movie,
it out.
But don't worry, hot dogs, we'll have a fresh one for you because this one this one beat me to death with that myth, with that Candyman myth. So I'm gonna break. We're gonna have to break away and try and dive into something a little different.
Yeah.
But like Day of the Dead, I don't know if I find myself in the depths of a Candyman binge, I might put it on. But honestly, I think it's like you could probably totally just miss this movie.
Yeah. Yes.
Just because the scares, like you were saying, like if you want to watch some of those like death sequences we saw in this, you could also watch one of the other movies. Yeah.
There's absolutely no need to watch this movie because it doesn't do anything new. I'm just going to exhaust myself talking about it.
I feel you. All right. Well, we'll leave it there for you hot dogs. Yeah. You pick it up and you listen to it, and we'll see you on the next episode, I suppose.
Yeah.
Have a good day. I can't steal that from LAB.